Judge, speaking of New York Law School, they honor you on October 1st at a gala in which your papers, which you donated to New York Law School, will be formally accepted, and a portrait of you, subscribed to by many of your former clerks, 31 of them, I believe, will be shown for the first time. And at this point, we're going to cut it to videotape of that gala.
I want to welcome you here this evening to New York Law School. My name is Rick Madisar. I'm the Dean at New York Law School, and it's my great privilege this evening to be our master of ceremonies in our celebration of Judge Roger Minor, a great lawyer, graduate of this law school, and wonderful judge. This is a great opportunity for us at the law school to do one of the great pleasures that you have, which is to celebrate a life in the law and to celebrate the excellence of people who have attended this law school. Often when we celebrate our lawyers, we're able to say they've done something important at their law firm. We're sometimes able to say that they've had an impact for a group of their colleagues, or perhaps the people who work with them. In the case of Roger Minor, we are able to celebrate so many things that it really makes it just that much more exciting, because the judge has served in so many capacities in the law and done so many interesting things that he's touched the lives of a lot of people. So tonight, we have people from his family and people from his extended family who are here. And I say that because those who are family members by blood or otherwise related are one kind of family, and those who are related through career and through his teaching are here in another purpose. So law clerks, former colleagues and current colleagues on the board of trustees of the law school, teachers on our faculty who have read his opinions and been influenced by them, and all the students who have attended the law school and found in one way or another a connection to Judge Minor. It's a great way for us to celebrate. Among the distinguished members of the judiciary who've received their legal training in New York Law School, Roger Minor, of the class of 1956, has attained a stature that many aspire to, and only a few can ever really achieve. We honor him this evening on the occasion of the dedication of his papers to New York Law School, and we pay tribute to one of our most distinguished graduates. Judge Minor has always responded to the call for public service. He served in active military duty from 1956 to 1959, later with the Army Reserve, from which he was discharged in 1964 at the rank of captain. In addition, Judge Minor has been Corporation Counsel for Hudson, New York. He served as District Attorney of Columbia County, and of course he's been on the bench. In 1976, he was elected to the Supreme Court of New York, and he took his place as one of the youngest justices ever to serve in the history of this state. In 1981, he was appointed to the United States District Court for the Northern District of New York. And in 1985, he became a judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit, serving actively until 1997 when he became a senior judge. And I want to pause for a second, because we say active and senior judge, and for those who aren't in the know as to what that means, what it means is you go from being active to being really active. Right? Because when you become a senior judge, you become available to the rest of the world. They draw on you and they suck you out of the Second Circuit and make you go all over the country and serve at the pleasure of other courts as well. And Judge Minor, of course, has been contributing throughout the federal judiciary over the last several years. He's an author and he's a lecturer. And he's offered an impassioned and ethical view of the place of lawyers in the judicial system. He's in fact called on members of our profession to feel obliged to do more than just serve, but to constructively criticize the legal system and serve to see that it's continuously in a state of improvement. And I pause here, Judge, because at New York Law School, as you know, we don't see the profession the way other law schools do. We treat it as a serious, lifelong commitment to making our profession as good as it can possibly be. We're a law school that has a Center for Professional Values and Practice, dedicated solely to the purpose that this is a profession that, as good as it is not as good as it should be. And as well as we practice as lawyers, there's much room for great improvement. And I think we're inspired, Judge, to know that that fits in the mold of things that you've told us are important in helping us to develop. The judge is a teacher, he's a mentor, and his clerks will attest he's a person who forces you to learn the law and learn it right and improve to the best that you can. This room is filled with people who have learned the lessons in his classrooms in life and the classrooms in law schools, and in his court. His clerks have gone on to their own distinguished careers, and it's indeed telling that so many of them are gathered here today to honor this most distinguished colleague and judge. On behalf of our trustees, the administration, the faculty, and our current students, Judge, New York Law School thanks you so much for your invaluable service, and thanks you for the dedication that you've given us of these wonderful papers. There's a historical treasure trove of things that we can rely upon at New York Law School, and a cataloging of these papers. We've just started the collection, and it's multi-volumed already, and the things that we can learn about your career and the way the issues that were driven through your courtroom have made a difference in our city and the state, certainly, and in the nation. So we are here on this great day to thank you and to do you honor. I would be remiss if I didn't end by pausing and saying, behind every judge, there are law clerks, but behind every judge and the law clerks is the spouse of the judge who ensures that things go well. And this evening, Jackie, it's as much your evening as it is the judge's, because of how deeply you have invested your time and effort to assure ourselves that we're going to have a great event tonight and really enjoy the proceedings. And I know that every person in this room that knows the Minor family knows that there's a major in the Minor family, and this is only a captain. And so that's how it goes. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Arthur Abbey, who was the chairman of the board of New York Law School, a 1959 graduate of the law school, and will add his congratulations as well.
Wow, this is great. It's such a pleasure and honor for me to be here this evening and to participate in honoring you, Judge Roger J. Minor. The Dean has spoken most eloquently about Judge Minor's many achievements, and I will only add that as chairman of the board of New York Law School, of the trustees, I speak for all of us, offer you congratulations for your outstanding career. You've been terrific, and we're so proud of you here. I want to tell you that the portrait of Judge Minor was donated to the law school by many of his former law clerks, all of whom are listed on the back of the program. And now it's my honor to present to you the portrait of Judge Roger J. Minor.
Thank you, Arthur. When we were speaking about the program this evening, I got together with the judge and with Mrs. Minor, and we reflected on what would be a fitting way for us to talk about the dedication of the papers to New York Law School. And the first thing that I think both the judge and Mrs. Minor came to conclude was that it would be an imperfect evening if Jim Simon were not here to be able to speak a little bit about his relationship to the judge and the judge's impact at New York Law School. I look around the room and I see Ernst Stiefel in this corner, and Ernst Stiefel behind me over here. I see Roger Minor right there, but next to Roger is Jim Simon, former dean of New York Law School, and who's been instrumental in much of the growth of this law school over its last 25-year period. Jim Simon.
Actually, I think I'd like to talk about my dear friend and really mentor, Judge Minor. Through some of the papers, the opinions that he's going to be giving to the New York Law School. And I should tell you that one of your former clerks, Michael Rawford, was very helpful in bringing some of these materials to my attention, and I know it was truly a labor of love for Michael. If you look at Judge Minor's opinions, you see, I think, all of the attributes of a great judge. You see his courage, the clarity of his thought, his wit, and his wisdom. And I'm going to give you some very brief examples of what I mean. When Roger Minor was on the district court in 1984, he had to deal with what was then known as the Baby Jane Doe case, in which the parents of a tragically handicapped child chose to forgo surgery. A lawyer with no ties to the family proceeded to relentlessly litigate, even though the family was not interested in it, and even though court after court said that the litigation was irrelevant and wrong. Finally, Judge Minor fined the lawyer for harassment and needless increase in the cost of litigation, and for his action, he was actually the subject of a New York Times editorial commending him for his action. What was not so well known then was at the time that Judge Minor took this action, he was already actively being considered for promotion in the federal judiciary. And he took this course of action at a time when certainly his decision could not have made him a great hero of the right to life people who were in fact the strong constituency of President Ronald Reagan. But nonetheless, Judge Minor showed his integrity and courage to do what he did. Judge Minor has always been a great lover of our system of justice, and at the same time, he is simply totally impatient with lawyers who abuse the system, as he was in the Baby Jane Doe case. And in another case, which I'm going to mention, there was a man named Taylor. Mr. Taylor had litigated over and over and over again, and according to the judge, he had managed to embody the paragon of harassing and vexatious litigation to which the sanctions of the Federal Rule 11 are directed. And Judge Minor said that Mr. Taylor was intent on making a mockery of the legal system, and it is time to call a halt to it. And Judge Minor did, and he imposed sanctions. Another instance, there was a takings case in which two owners of motels in Lake Placid, New York, had entered into an agreement with the Olympic Committee that was holding the Winter Olympics. And they had gotten more money for renting their rooms than probably in all of their commercial history. But nonetheless, after the Olympics were finished, they said they'd lost business. They went out of business, and they sued the Olympic Committee for taking their business without just compensation. Roger Minor, in his opinion, noted that the average in revenue of the two motels in the same period, over the 3 years prior to the Olympics, was under $2,000. And for the 3 weeks of the Olympics, the plaintiffs had made almost $40,000. So in reality, he said, plaintiffs' true dissatisfaction stems from their disappointment in not being able to price gouge Olympic patrons who sought motel. Now that's straight talking, it seems to me, and vintage Judge Minor. Another example. Judge Minor was on a three-judge appellate panel to determine who owned Ellis Island, New York or New Jersey. Judge Minor, who is quite erudite, traced title back to England's Charles II in 1664 and brought it up to the present and concluded that New York indeed owned Ellis Island. Well, he was reversed by the Supreme Court, but he was unbound. Judge Minor counted, and he said, well, it was 6-6. There were 3 judges on the appellate court and 3 on the Supreme Court in dissent. And then there were these other guys. Though he did admit that those other 6 maybe had a little more clout than he did. Finally, as Dean Manasar has said, Judge Minor is on senior status and incredibly active. Judge Minor has been engaged in an ongoing dialogue, I think, with the Supreme Court of the United States over the proper meaning and interpretation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. And Judge Minor has gone back not only to the words of Thomas Jefferson, but he is also, with great insight, I think, traced the modern doctrine of the Establishment Clause. And just a few months ago, in June of this year, in dissent, unfortunately, he wrote an opinion, again, very erudite, very clear. It was in the case Bronx Household of Faith versus the Board of Education, in which the court was called upon to decide whether the Board of Education was required to rent space to a group that, among other activities, was going to hold religious services. And Judge Minor in dissent said that they could not, they should not, because it was a violation of the Establishment Clause. I just want to assure you, Judge, that I know you're a great scholar and student of Justice Holmes. And Holmes, we know, had a way of having his dissents become the law of the land, and I have every expectation and hope that your words will as well. Finally, I've been asked to give you what may be considered the keys to your judicial kingdom at New York Law School. The New York Law School library staff has done an absolutely wonderful job under Camille Broussard, Michael, and others of cataloging the first installment of your extraordinary collection of opinions. And I have here a volume of the index, which I'd like to present you at this time.
Thank you, Jim. It's my privilege now to introduce 2 of the judge's law clerks who are also graduates of New York Law School. And a shameless plug. Those of you who can hire, please hire our graduates, because Judge Minor has done so, and done so well for many, many years. And the wonderful opportunity of working with our students gives a chance from generation to generation to improve the quality of lawyering in New York. 2 of the clerks who are going to speak today, who were instrumental in bringing this event together, are Dan Isaacs, who's a class of 1991, and my colleague, Michael Crawford, who has chosen wisely to continue his New York Law School affiliation by working at New York Law School in our library. Gentlemen.
Dean Manasar, Dean Simon, Chairman Abbey, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Your Honor. I must first say how gratifying it is to see so many people here this evening, and in particular, many of the judge's former clerks, some of whom have traveled great distances to be here, specifically Virginia Allen, who came from Spain, and Don Darkany, who came from the faraway land of Wisconsin. I would also like to thank New York Law School, and in particular Dean Barbara Lashinsky, for all your efforts in putting together this evening's program, and for allowing me the opportunity to say a few words about our honoree. And I know you emphasize the words few to me, Judge, so I'll try to be brief. Well, Judge, while thinking about what I was going to say this evening, I thought about something that you have always said to me throughout the years, that although I am a man of many talents, the law is not one of them. I shall therefore avoid any substantive comments, deferring instead to my esteemed colleague, Michael Crawford, and accordingly shall yield to him a portion of my allotted time. However, that is not to say that I didn't do a little research of my own. You may be surprised to know, Judge, that exactly 18 years and 17 days ago, you took your oath of office as the 53rd appointee to the Circuit Court, after having previously served as a State Supreme Court Justice for 5 years and a District Court Judge for another 4 years, a total of 27 years of judicial service. You may recall, Your Honor, that upon your induction as a Circuit Court Judge, you said the following, and I quote, "As I take this seat, I am mindful of the important responsibilities I am assuming. I approach those responsibilities with a firm resolve to bring to each case an open mind and a sense of fairness. As a lawyer and trial judge, I have long been aware of the overriding concerns of litigants for impartiality and objectivity in the decisional process. Those concerns will continue to be of paramount importance to me as an appellate judge. I bring to this court a fierce desire to do justice in accordance with the oath I have just taken, and to use all the diligence, all the skills, and all the effort I can bring to bear in carrying out my judicial duties." Well, Your Honor, I think that all here tonight would concur that you have done so, and that your tenure has been a distinguished one, notably not only for your legal scholarship, but for your wit, wisdom, and compassion as well. Now, not that being a judge on the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit is enough, you have also held other titles throughout your career, as Dean Matasar talked about earlier. You were a captain in the Judge Advocate General's Court, a corporation counsel, and a district attorney. But you have also been a teacher, having taught literally hundreds of law students over the years while serving as an adjunct professor here at New York Law School, and then at Albany Law School, and being a mentor to the dozens more who had the great privilege to serve as a clerk in your chambers. And I respectfully submit that Your Honor's legacy is not found just in the papers and memorabilia that you have generously donated this evening, but can also be found in the generations of lawyers to whom you have imparted your love for the law and pursuit of justice. Thank you.
I'm going to add my thanks to those that Dan has already conveyed, to all the people who have contributed to making this evening possible. Judge Minor, who many of us know and refer to simply and affectionately as the judge, first spoke with me about this event back in April, right before I started at the Mendick Library. And describing what he referred to as my first assignment, the judge asked me to speak at a small reception the law school would be holding to recognize the donation of his papers. The judge wanted me to speak about his works, and I told him I'd be delighted to do so. While Judge Minor referred to it as an assignment, to me it was no such thing. The opportunity to share my thoughts about a vast and distinguished body of work would not only be an honor, but, as Jim Simon mentioned, a labor of love. The relative proportions of labor and love were something I hadn't quite figured out at the moment, but no matter. I relished the prospect of collecting the hundreds of opinions and articles and speeches. I relished the prospect of reading them or rereading them. I relished the prospect of thinking about those works collectively and of synthesizing them into a coherent presentation that might give voice to the essential Judge Minor. I must have been out of my mind to take on such a project. There was a lot to do, and it was daunting. Even more daunting, though, was the realization that I would have just 20 to 30 minutes, or so I thought. As the date approached, my allotted time kept shrinking. First, it went to no more than 20 minutes. Challenging, but not, I suppose, impossible. And then it became just 10 to 15 minutes. How, I wondered, with increasing anxiety, could I ever begin to address more than 20 years of erudition in so short a space of time? Those worries that had come to obsess me beyond distraction, proved to have been for naught when I recently learned that my allotted time had been reduced to 5 to 7 minutes. I remonstrated with His Honor. "Judge, don't you remember what you wanted my remarks to be about?" "Yes," he said, "about 5 minutes." My temptation is to lay out for you the richness and significance of each and every one of the judge's opinions and articles and speeches, but I know I can't. I'm reminded of the young lawyer who once appeared before an appellate court with all the elementary texts that applied to his case, quoting again and again to the panel the most fundamental propositions of law. Hoping to hurry the lawyer up, one of the judges interjected, "Can't we assume that the court knows a little law itself?" "That's the very mistake I made in the lower court," answered the young lawyer, "and I don't want to let it defeat me twice." Well, I haven't brought any texts, and I don't intend to address any fundamental propositions of law. Instead, as I once told Judge Minor, I will demonstrate the extent of his influence and be brief. At least I hope so for your sake. For my part, I will find solace in the belief that no speech can be entirely bad if it's short enough. October 1st, today's date, is an auspicious one for celebrating this event. It's a date on which history has already marked many other important unveilings. 100 years ago today, the Pittsburgh Pirates played the Boston Pilgrims in the very first World Series. 95 years ago today, Henry Ford introduced the Model T, the car that was to revolutionize America in so many ways. Fast forwarding to October 1st, 1955, just 7 months before Judge Minor was to receive his law degree from New York Law School. And as he toiled day and night as the first managing editor of the Law Review, America was enjoying the premiere of the new television comedy, The Honeymooners. I note the shared anniversary of these events because all of them are, in one form or another, still with us, just as in years to come, when the law school marks new milestones and recognizes other great alumni, Judge Minor's lasting presence will likewise still be with us. As I began to prepare for tonight, I focused initially on a number of quantitative criteria. I started to catalog, as librarians are wont to do, the number of decisions Judge Minor had authored, the number of dissents and concurrences, the number of times his decisions had been affirmed, how often his decisions had been cited by other courts and by law scholars. I even tried to ascertain whether any of his decisions had been reversed on appeal, and I must report my discovery that there had been such occasions. After compiling a rather sizable body of material, several linear feet to be more precise, I decided to abandon such a brutally scientific approach because I realized how little all those numbers really said or meant. Many of you know Judge Minor has been a prodigious writer. He has authored more than 600 published opinions, and he has sat on Second Circuit panels in almost 1,900 matters. The judge was and is so prolific because he worked and still works as hard as anyone I knew or know. But it wasn't work for him. It was always pure joy. Well, what can be said of his decisions? Their essence can be distilled to certain elemental concepts. Concepts like fairness and equity, dignity and respect, and something as simple as right and wrong. His decisions elucidate some of the most fundamental and troublesome areas of human existence. From questions about government involvement in religion to, quite literally, questions of life and death. In one of his more well-known decisions, the judge struck down as unconstitutional New York's statutory prohibition against physician-assisted suicide. The Supreme Court ultimately reversed that decision, but since that represents someone else's work, I suppose I shouldn't devote any of my remaining time to it. Many of the judge's decisions have been the subject of headlines and editorials. Jim mentioned one earlier, and I was just going to quote it for you because it's a 1984 New York Times editorial which applauded what it referred to as Judge Minor's welcome rebuke of right-to-life attorney A. Lawrence Washburn after Judge Minor imposed sanctions on Washburn in the controversial case involving baby Jane Doe. In his highly praised Second Circuit history lecture, Judge Minor painstakingly compiled all of the Second Circuit decisions that were fully reviewed by the Supreme Court during the Second Circuit's first century, between 1891 and 1991. And during that 100-year period, the court enjoyed a rough batting average of about 500. Judge Minor's own batting average in the Supreme Court was, if my math is correct, about 444, with 4 out of 9 cases being affirmed, putting him in the company of such distinguished jurists as Henry Friendly and Irving Kaufman, among others. Earlier this year, there was talk in legal and political circles concerning possible Supreme Court vacancies and the individuals who were likely to fill such spots. For me, those discussions were reminiscent of an earlier time when the subject of similar speculation was Roger Minor. A 1989 Associated Press article reported that in a survey before the 1988 presidential election, 40 court observers named Judge Minor one of 10 likely choices by Bush. A 1997 issue of U.S. News and World Report referred to Judge Minor, who it described as tall and imposing, yet no ideologue, one of my absolute favorite descriptions, as having been on Republican shortlists for the Supreme Court. I know we all would have liked to have seen destiny mark his apogee in a higher court, but I can't help but think how much more significant and tangible an impact the judge has had in terms of the numbers of people and lives and areas of the law that have been affected by his day-to-day efforts in both the circuit and the district courts. For all its majesty, the Supreme Court decides only about 75 cases in a term. In the cases it decides, the issues resolved tend to be exceedingly narrow. Ambrose Bierce is said to have told the story of an Associate Justice of the Supreme Court who was sitting by a river when a traveler approached and said, "I wish to cross. Will it be lawful for me to use this boat?" "It will," was the reply. "It is my boat." The traveler thanked the Associate Justice, pushed the boat into the water, embarked, and rowed away. But the boat sank, and he was drowned. "Heartless man," said an indignant spectator, "why didn't you tell him that your boat had a hole in it?" "The matter of the boat's condition," said the jurist, "was not brought before me." Beyond his opinions lies a whole other body of works. Judge Minor has authored more than 30 law journal and law review articles covering the broadest possible range of topics. All of them reflect a directness and pragmatism not always seen in the law. Many of his articles provide much needed advice to the bar, particularly its younger members, as to what they can and should do to improve the system. For Judge Minor, the purpose in writing is to teach. In a 1993 Law Review article, Judge Minor decried academic writing that fails to teach, observing that writing by academics can be so obscure as to be incomprehensible and therefore of little value to the bench and bar. When academics talk only to each other, he wrote, the rest of the profession suffers. Another major theme of his work is responsibility. Do what you're supposed to do, ask what you should ask, say what you should say. The judge loves to tell the story of the jury foreperson called upon to deliver a verdict of guilt or innocence in a criminal case who reports, "Your Honor, we have decided that we don't want to get involved." For Judge Minor, not getting involved is simply not an option. To invoke Ambrose Bierce again, he wants to find a judge as a person who is always interfering in disputes in which he has no personal interest. For Judge Minor, though, each and every case before him created the strongest of personal interests, seeing to it that justice was done. In the 2001 special edition of the New York Law School in Brief, Dean Manasar wrote that the law school is dedicated to the propositions that law is useful, that theory only works when joined with excellent practice, and that we are obligated to use law to create a more just society. There is no better exemplar of those propositions than Judge Minor. A few months ago, I mentioned Judge Minor's name to my 9-year-old son, Ben. You should understand that Ben actually met the judge on a couple of occasions when they were both a bit younger, and Ben has some particularly fond memories of swimming in the pool at the judge's and Jackie's beautiful home in Hudson. After hearing Judge Minor's name, Ben looked up at me and said, "Is he a real judge?" "Of course he is," I replied. "Like Judge Judy and Judge Hatchett and Judge Joe Brown?" Ben asked. "I really like Judge Joe Brown," he said. "No, Ben," I said. "Judge Minor is not like them at all. Judge Minor truly is a real judge." Ben may yet be too young to grasp the import of the distinction I hinted at, but I am sure he will discover it over time. I know I'm proud, and that the entire New York Law School community is proud, to have had the privilege and honor of having been associated with Judge Minor as a student, as an alumnus, as a teacher, as an advisor and mentor, as a former member of the Board of Trustees, and perhaps most of all, as a real judge. Thank you all very much for listening, and enjoy the balance of the evening.
Every great trial lawyer would say that the most important moment is the last opportunity to speak to the triers of fact, or to the jury, rebuttal time. We've reserved for the judge that rebuttal time tonight so that he can close this program and have back at all the rest of us. Judge Minor.
Thank you, Dean Manasar. I'm very grateful to the law clerks who have presented this portrait to the school, and I'm very grateful to the school for accepting it. The only thing that I can say about the artist is that he did the best he could. And I'm certainly glad to be here tonight. At my age, I'm glad to be anywhere. And I enjoyed the remarks of the dean very much. He's quite a spark plug, our new dean, and I've read some of the things he's written about the mission of New York Law School, and I'm happy to report that we're going to get back to the job of training lawyers here. And that's what the school has been dedicated to, and that's what we have to continue to do at New York Law School. And I thank Arthur Abbey for his kind remarks. He's the chairman of a board of trustees. He's a distinguished attorney here in New York City, a philanthropist. And of course, his firm is very active before my court, so it doesn't hurt to say a few nice things. Jeff. Jim Simon, a very distinguished scholar. New York Law School is very fortunate to have him. He was the dean. He was the dean when I got my second degree from New York Law School, my honorary degree. the work that he's done is really outstanding. He comes out with a new book every couple of years. His most recent book was a very excellent work called What Kind of Nation? Contrasting the styles and the lives of Thomas Jefferson and his cousin John Marshall. It was a very, very intriguing way that Jim wrote the book, and point counterpoint. He's written many books over the years. I thought this was an especially good one. I started out to write a book review about it, as a matter of fact. I still got my notes on it. I was otherwise occupied by the dissent that he mentioned, and so I cited his book in my dissent rather than writing a review of it. But I know that on one occasion, one of the justices of the Supreme Court gave out his book, one of his books, for Christmas presents. And that's how well regarded he is in the academic field. I won't mention her name, but and my two clerks who spoke tonight, I thank them very much. Dan Isaacs has always been a real spark plug. He's very close to the family. He came to me highly recommended by my wife, who met him at some Republican function. He was the president of the state Republican club, and she told me to take a look at him. Then I was teaching here at the time, and he was a student in my class, federal crimes, and he did a wonderful job in my class. I gave him an A. I said, gee, this is the kind of fellow I want in my chambers. He's a brilliant law student. And then I found out he blew off his other classes so he could get an A in my course. But he was a good law clerk, despite what he says. He's a very diligent fellow, and he's somebody that you can always rely on. Mike Roffer, of course, has been with me, was with me longer than anybody else. He was 2 years with me on the district court and 1 year on the circuit. And I found him down here when I came down to interview at New York Law School. He's a wonderful young lawyer at the time. He's still fairly young, but it's a long time ago. He had a successful career at the bar, and just a couple years ago he started out in a different career. He got a Master of Library Science degree, and here he is back at New York Law School doing what he really loves, which is research, and he's so good at it. And I'm very grateful to him. I'm grateful to all the law clerks who came tonight from so many places. I consider them alumni, and Jackie and I consider them family as well. We try to remain in close contact with all of them. There's a special relationship that develops between a judge and his clerks, and I like to think we've had that relationship. And they've gone on to all kinds of jobs. They're partners and senior associates at major law firms. I've got one who's a professor of law down south in law school, counsel to the governor of the state of New York. He's here tonight, and I'm grateful to see him. I have one fellow's a member of the State Assembly, and these are all wonderful people who've served me well over the years, and I hope have learned a great deal. One of the former clerks, I forgot to say, is House Counsel to the Miss Universe contest. He's here tonight too. Glad to see him be with us. And I take this opportunity to thank the members of my family for the love, support, and encouragement I've received from them throughout the years. Foremost among them is, of course, my wife Jackie, to whom I literally owe my life as well as my career. My life was saved through her adamant insistence on medical treatment following my cardiac arrest. When all said I was finished, she stood by day and night monitoring the physicians who were treating me, and I'm glad I wasn't one of those physicians. They'll tell you today that most wives would have signed off at an early stage, but she must certainly love me to work so hard at keeping me around, and I'm still in love with her after many years of marriage. She has been, is, and as long as I live will be, my everything. Insofar as my career is concerned, Jackie has not merely been a supportive observer. Her political skills have guided me through my years of public service, starting with her management of my first campaign for district attorney. It was through her talent and knowledge that I was able to be nominated for the state Supreme Court in the 3rd Judicial District that included Albany, although no judge had been elected for my small county in 50 years. It was through her talent and knowledge that I obtained the endorsement of a second party that made me the margin of victory in that election. And it was her talent and knowledge of the workings of the national government that brought me to the attention of the senator who recommended my nomination in the district court. And it was her talent and knowledge of the workings of the White House and its staff and her participation in those operations that brought me to the attention of those who zealously guarded the process by which President Reagan chose circuit judge appointees. And so it was no surprise when President Reagan called to offer me the nomination that he asked how Jackie was doing. They say that a judge is a lawyer who knew a politician. I have had the pleasure of sleeping with one. Our children have come far and wide to be with us tonight, and we're very happy about that. Our oldest, Larry, came all the way from his home in Santa Monica, California. He's the athlete in the family, still in pretty good shape. We're very proud of Larry. He was a graduate of the College of Environmental Science at Syracuse. He has spent his professional career in California, and the companies that have employed him have greatly benefited from his expertise in environmental regulation compliance. He also has his own environmental consulting business. Larry recently became the father of twins, Evan James and Josh Abraham. Abraham named after my father, about whom I shall speak later. His wife Lisa is at home in Santa Monica with the 2 little guys. Number 2 is Ronald Carmichael, who is a naval architect and engineer with a degree in ocean engineering from Florida Institute of Technology. Ronald has been a civilian engineer with the Department of the Navy for 18 years and now has the heavy responsibility of managing the torpedo launching and sonar dome technology for the Navy. The Navy couldn't do without him. His work is especially important of late, since the Navy, as we all know, is stretched to its limits around the world. He's a world-class scuba diver and instructor and has even taught me how to dive. I don't dive anymore. He tried to teach his mother how to dive, but said that she couldn't keep her mouth shut long enough. Ron is here with his steady companion, Dory McMillan, and they live in Arlington, Virginia. Number 3 son is Ralph Carmichael, New York Law School, 88, who provided continuity in the family tradition after his receiving the BA and MBA degrees from Michigan State. He was an outstanding student here, winner of most of those book awards that they used to give to outstanding first-year students. In the various courses, he was a law review editor and landed a job on Wall Street in the oldest Wall Street law firm, Cadwalader, Wickersham and Taft. That's a name that rolls in one's mouth, you know. Who said that New York Law School graduates could not make it on Wall Street? We founded most of the firms on Wall Street here from New York Law School. At any rate, Ralph worked on corporate matters and at the firm and thought he'd like it better to be making the deals rather than handling the legal end. He landed a job at Bear Stearns and became a vice president in short order. Then he courageously undertook a very daring and daunting project and created his own banking house, Carmichael and Company. That's about as easy as forming your own new automobile manufacturing company. But he did it, and after several years on Fifth Avenue, he moved his headquarters recently to Phoenix, Arizona. People say to me, how come Ralph didn't follow in the tradition and practice law? I said, because he's like that famous bank robber, Willie Sutton. He robbed banks because that's where the money is. And Ralph formed the bank because that's where the money is. his wife, Rose, is at home in Phoenix, and they're parents of two great kids, Clayton and Sienna. Number 4 is son Mark. He's also a Michigan State graduate, having majored in public relations. Many say that his personality is akin to mine. I don't know if that's a compliment to him or not. Anyway, he's been in the political end of the public relations business since he graduated from college. He learned a great deal about politics from Jackie and about the law from his service as communications director for the Attorney General of Virginia. When the Attorney General ran for governor, Mark was the press spokesman for the campaign and ultimately became press secretary to the governor after his election. Presently, Mark lives in Austin, Texas, where his wife Robin hails from. He is now press secretary to the Lieutenant Governor of Texas, who presides over the Senate there. They have been having a lot of fun in Austin lately, lots of lawsuits and people running in and out of the state, according to the press accounts. Mark and Robin, who is here, are the parents of granddaughter Sydney, who visited us this summer and stole my heart away. They're expecting a brother for Sydney in January. I love all these children and their children very much and appreciate their support over the years. They too made some sacrifices for my career. I was not around as much as I should have been and regret it now, but maybe I can make it up with the grandchildren. Finally, I make mention of my only sibling, Brother Lance, who is here with his wife Mary Ellen and son Aaron. They too have always been most supportive, and I want them to know of my love, affection, and respect for them. Lance and Mary Ellen now constitute the law firm of Minor & Minor in Hudson, successors to Minor & Minor, my father and me. As is typical for one who is approaching the milestone marked 70, I find my thoughts turning more and more to the past, to the people, places, and things that live in memory. My reminiscences are of the people I have loved and who have loved me, of old friendships, of personal and professional successes and failures, of wonderful people I have met along the way, and of course, of a life in the law. That part of my life has been connected intimately with New York Law School, a connection that began in my early childhood. My first knowledge of the school came through my inquiry of my mother when I asked her about the significance of this gold key that I hold in my hand. It bears the seal of New York Law School on the front. That's the Justinian Code, Principia Justitiae. It's a great thing, you know. It says, principles of justice are these: to live honestly, not to harm another, and to give every man his due. I don't know why we need any laws beyond that, but I guess we wouldn't have any work if we didn't. But on the other side of the key are my father's initials. And my mother wore this frequently on a gold pin attached to her dress. It was the only engagement gift that my father could afford, and she wore it proudly throughout her lifetime. According to family legend, this key also spent some time in pawn shops here in the city. On one occasion, my father had a hocket for subway fare because the law firm he was delivering papers for during his student days failed to advance his expenses. At about the age of 7, my father came to the United States with his mother from a place called Turna in Poland, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Opportunities for Jewish people there were, to say the least, very scarce, although my grandmother always spoke well of the Emperor Franz Joseph. My father's father followed shortly, and the family settled in upstate Hudson, where my grandmother's brother had established himself as a merchant. That man and his wife, a childless couple, took an interest in my father and arranged for the $100 he needed to enroll in law school after his graduation from Hudson High School in 1923. Although my father attended the day session of law school, he literally worked his way through school with full-time jobs. New York Law School was then located in the YMCA building in the Chelsea district. The dean was Robert Petty, one of the Columbia law professors who founded the school. Max Reich, a European-educated scholar, was one of his professors and also was a teacher of mine. My father graduated from the law school in 1926 exactly 30 years before I was to graduate. Although he said he was distracted by the lights of the city and should have spent more time in the library, he passed the bar exam the first time. He married my mother, a New York City girl, and returned to Hudson, practically penniless, to become the first Jewish lawyer to practice there. His financial burdens included his parents, whose candy store was always a marginal operation. But he persevered. His first job in Hudson was as a clerk in the office of John C. Tracy. Thank you. A well-known lawyer and part-time county judge. My father eventually opened his own office and was a single practitioner for many years. He gained an excellent reputation and developed a successful practice. He once ran unsuccessfully for Hudson City Judge, but was frequently called judge anyway, in keeping with a quaint upstate tradition. I revered my father greatly and always took an interest in his work. I never contemplated a different career, except very briefly music. Abe Miner had a brilliant legal mind and was my mentor in all things. My own path to the law was made much easier as a result of my father's efforts. After I graduated from Hudson High School in 1951, I was accepted in Columbia College in the then all-male liberal arts curriculum. I enrolled in the 3-in-3 program, whereby the first year at Columbia Law School would be considered the final college year. Although I did well enough in college, I was anxious to get at law studies, and in a catalog that I procured from my father's alma mater, learned that you could enroll in law school with a 2-year college background. At that time, the state issued what is known as the Law School Qualifying Certificate, attesting to at least 2 years of college credits. I applied, and after an interview with a 3-man committee consisting of Professors Koffler, Dugan, and Silverman, I was duly accepted. Professor Koffler is here tonight, and I'm glad that you approved my application to enter law school. He was also a teacher of mine, and an excellent one at this school. My son Ralph had as a professor, and Professor Silverman, who was also on that committee, was a professor of Ralph's. But there was a catch when I enrolled here. I had to complete 8 full semesters of law school. I had 2 years of college, so I had to do 8 semesters of law school. I eventually took just about every course the law school offered, even taking some night courses to fill out my requirements. I graduated here at the age of 21, and just turned 22 when I was admitted to the bar. I did get a college degree some years after my law school graduation in my military service. I knew practically from the time I walked in the door at the old law school building at 244 William Street that I was in the right place. I loved the study of law and have enjoyed every minute of my life in the law. The old building was long ago knocked down to make way for the Brooklyn Bridge approach and One Police Plaza. In the old days, warehouses were nearby, and the smell of coffee in those warehouses often filled the air inside the law school. I can still see the law school. I can still see its shadow as I look through the municipal building in the direction of its location. I can also still see the professors from long ago, and I well remember their names and the fine education they provided. In those days, we had comprehensive exams at the end of each year in addition to the exams in the subjects we studied. In the comprehensive exam, we would be tested on the entire area of law covered to date. That was a fine preparation for the bar exam, and I would hope that the present faculty can remember that they are training lawyers and not psychologists, sociologists, social critics, or philosophers. Many of us in the profession and on the bench are becoming aware of a growing disconnect between the profession and the academy. When I jokingly remarked to an academic that I had read about a law school course, not given here thankfully, called Medieval Icelandic Dispute Resolution, he said that the professor who taught the course was much in demand throughout the nation. I I can only guess how disputes were resolved in medieval Iceland. I think that we who are alumni of New York Law School should take great pride in our alma mater and support it in any way that we can. And Dean Lashinsky, that's the best I can do for you tonight. Over the years, I have often corrected those who confuse us with the institution in Washington Square. The graduates of this school can do anything that the graduates of any other law school can do. And that's the message that I hope will be conveyed by this portrait. I would not want the message to be, look, here's a picture of a graduate who made it to the United States Court of Appeals and made a short list for the Supreme Court. Rather, the message must be that all careers in the legal profession are open to you, students here. And your education at this school is an important first step. Although I am the second graduate to be appointed to the U.S. Court of Appeals, I am the first to donate his papers to the school, and the first to hire law clerks from the school. When my predecessor made it to the Supreme Court, he would not consider my application, although I was an honor student here. I vowed then that if I ever got the opportunity, I would hire clerks from New York Law School to serve in my chambers so they could have that valuable career experience. Today, to date, some 20 graduates of the school have served in my chambers, and I intend to continue hiring from here. Graduates of this school can be anything they want to be, and are just as worthy of prestigious clerkships as the graduates of any other law school in the nation. During my service on the Board of Trustees, I continually urged that a graduate of the school be appointed to the tenured faculty. As far as I know, that has not yet been done. Maybe Mike Roffer is the start in the library, but it's most unfortunate that the students here must be given the impression that there is not a living alumnus worthy to teach here as a tenured professor. From my point of view, may this portrait be dedicated to a single proposition: that all things are open to all who enter here. Thank you.
We're once again gathered together to finish our celebration and begin new celebration in honor of Judge Minor. It's my pleasure once again to welcome you to our wonderful evening and really to have a chance to reflect in a little bit more calm circumstances as our evening is going to go forward. What a joy it is to be together this evening and celebrate this great event, twofold: the dedication of Judge Minor's papers and the real outpouring of love and respect for the judge from his law clerks. There's no question, as we were talking earlier this evening, that it will be such a pleasure for our students to be able to reflect a little on the history of their law school when they see the portrait of the judge in the reading room downstairs. And I think the judge's remarks are really apropos of a great story to tell about our law school. It's a real tribute, I think, to all of them who are the law clerks of the judge, who supported this gift, that they've come from distances to be here this evening and share their real affection with the judge and Mrs. Minor by being our guest this evening. I am, as we pause and go to dinner, having one last official duty before the evening is out, and that's to welcome all of the law clerks to stand and be recognized by all of you. So to the clerks, please stand. come up here, you're going to take a picture with the judge so you'll have something to remember the evening by before it's all done. So come on up, and everyone else go eat. Thanks, Fred.
I'll schedule the next one.
Thank you all. I have a special surprise, I think, for the judge, something he does not know, and something that I didn't know whether I wanted to do this evening or not, but I'm going to do it. We have an anonymous graduate of our law school who does not want his name identified, who has been very moved by these events, and he has made a gift to the law school in the judge's honor of $25,000 to start a scholarship. In Judge Minor's name, he says he's challenging others to come to the plate to come to with their gifts as well in order to raise that scholarship fund. So, in a light touch, because he's usually a very heavy touch, my light touch is if anyone is so moved, please let me know. I'd love to ask that scholarship fund and to really create something wonderful in the judge's honor here at New York Law School that will go along with the picture. So there's a picture and a kid who got his education supported to go along with it, which is a great way to go. So, Judge, we need to be levitated.
Very nice.
I just thought that in a later moment you might be interested in a collection of mine. I've been accumulating over the years. It's a collection of questions and answers from actual cases. And I use it in my teaching sometimes to illustrate how lawyers sometimes don't think when they ask questions in court. And these are actually been asked and answered, and we who have to go through these transcripts of trial on these appeals, this gives us some reason to keep going, just for looking for these kinds of things. And I've been collecting. For example, this is a question and answer in an actual trial. Question: what is your date of birth? Answer: July 15th. Question: what year? Answer: every year. Question: what year were you in at the moment of the impact? Answer: Gucci sweats and Reeboks. The lawyers don't think about these questions. Question: this myasthenia gravis, does it affect your memory at all? Answer: yes. Question: and in what way does it affect your memory? Answer: I forget. Question: you forget. Can you give us an example of something that you've forgotten? How old is your son, the one living with you? Answer: 38 or 35, I can't remember which. Question: how long has he lived with you? Answer: 45 years. Question: what was the first thing your husband said to you when he woke that morning? Answer: he said, "Where am I, Kathy?" Question: and why did that upset you? Answer: my name is Susan. Question: where was the location of the accident? Answer: approximately milepost 499. And where is milepost 499? Answer: probably somewhere between milepost 498 and 500. This is one that you wonder if anything goes through their mind when they ask these questions. Question: what happened then? Answer: he told me, he says, "I have to kill you because you can identify me." Question: did he kill you? Now I'm going to show you what has been marked at Plaintiff's Exhibit number 2 and ask if you recognize the picture. Answer: John Fletcher. Question: that's you. Answer: yes, sir. Question: and you were present when the picture was taken. Question: now, Mrs. Johnson, how was your first marriage terminated? Answer: by death. Question: and by whose death was it terminated? Question:
Question, what is your name? Answer, Ernestine McDowell. Question, what is your marital status? Answer, fair. Question, are you married? Answer, no, I am divorced. Question, what did your husband do before you divorced him? Answer, a lot of things that I didn't know about. Question, Mr. Jones, is your appearance this morning pursuant to a subpoena which was served upon you? Answer, no, this is how I dress when I go to work. Questioning a very young boy. Question, and lastly, Gary, all your responses must be oral, okay? What school do you go to? Answer, oral. Do you have any sort of medical disability? Answer, legally blind. Question, does that create substantial problems with your eyesight as far as seeing things? Question, are you qualified to give a urine sample? Yes, I have been since early childhood. Question, was there some event, Valerie, that occurred which kind of finally made you determined that you had to separate from your husband? Answer, yes. Question, what did he do? Answer, well, he tried to kill me. Question, all right. And then you felt that was the last straw. Question, as you were driving your car just before the accident, where is your right foot located? Answer, it was located at the end of my right leg. Question, do you know how far pregnant you are right now? Answer, I'll be 3 months, November 8th. Question, apparently then the date of conception was August 8th. Answer, yes. Question, what were you and your husband doing at that time? Question, what doctor treated you for the injuries you sustained while at work? Answer, Dr. James. Question, and what kind of physician is Dr. James? Answer, well, I'm not sure, but I remember you said he was a good plaintiff's doctor. Some of these things are just hilarious. Question, I understand that you want a new lawyer because your present lawyer is not interested in your case. Is that right? Answer, yes, Your Honor. Question, counselor, what do you have to say to that? Answer, could you repeat that, Your Honor? I wasn't listening. Question, can you participate? This is an voir dire examination where they question jurors respecting their qualification. Question, can you participate in an endeavor in which the ultimate result might be death by lethal injection? Answer, well, they do that up in Huntsville, don't they? I could do it if it was on a weekend. Question. Again, voir dire, questioning prospective jurors. Question, property holder? Answer, yes, I am, Your Honor. Question, married or single? Answer, married for 20 years, Your Honor. Question, formed or expressed an opinion? Answer, not in 20 years. And, of course, the medical profession, the expert witnesses, a very fertile field for these questions and answers. Doctor, what is the meaning of sperm being present? Answer, it indicates intercourse. Question, male sperm? Answer, that is the only kind I know. Now, doctor, isn't it true that when a person dies in his sleep, in most cases, he just passes quietly away and doesn't know anything about it until the next morning? Doctor, how many autopsies have you performed on dead people? Answer, all my autopsies. Doctor, as a result of your examination of the plaintiff, is the young lady pregnant? Answer, the young lady is pregnant, but not as a result of my examination. This is my favorite story of all time. I gave it to the pathologist I used to work with when I was district attorney, and he framed it hanging on his wall. It's a cross-examination of a pathologist in a murder case, and the defense attorney asked him some questions, and here's the way it went. Trying to impeach his credibility, I suppose. Before you signed the death certificate, had you taken the pulse? Answer, no. Did you listen to the heart? Answer, no. Did you check for breathing? Answer, no.
So when you signed the death certificate, you weren't sure the man was dead, were you? Answer, well, let me put it this way. The man's brain was sitting in a jar like that. But I guess it's possible he could be out there practicing law.
Judge, I want to thank you very much. Ralph, thank you. It's been a great honor doing this interview, and we are very grateful for your taking the time.
I enjoyed it very much. I hope I provided some information, and your questions were very good, and we'll see you in New York.